Hey everybody, welcome back to a very special edition of Garage Talk. I've never interviewed another YouTuber on this podcast, and I thought, why not now?
Welcome to another episode of Garage Talk, the podcast for motorcycle enthusiasts with your host, Cruiseman. Today's episode is sponsored by Cruiseman's Garage Honda Goldwing Maintenance Videos, a collection of more than 80 videos that show you how to maintain your own Honda Goldwing. Today's episode starts now.
Everybody, welcome back to Garage Talk. This month, I am doing something a little differently. I'm actually going to visit with a fellow YouTuber, fellow Goldwing owner. I would like to welcome to the program Robert White from Robert White Moto. Robert, how's it going?
Hey, Chris. It's going great. Thank you for having me on. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Well, Robert, for those of you that don't know, lives in the general area where I live. I live in Carrollton, Texas. He lives up in Frisco, right?
Yeah, Frisco, right?
Not that far away. And I'll let him tell the story as to how we actually connected, because I think maybe you saw one of my videos.
Yeah, it was quite random, and I think it's how a lot of people find you, especially if they're local. I was watching your videos long before I owned the Goldwing because I wanted to learn about it, and you were motovlogging from somewhere, and you made a turn onto a highway, and I immediately recognized that highway, and I thought, oh my goodness, this guy is local. I have to meet him. So one thing led to another. I sent you an email, said, could I join you for breakfast one day, you and Don? And you said, sure, come on out. And man, I was walking in big time fanboy and was excited to meet you. And that's kind of how it all got started. And it's just sort of morphed into this.
The fanboy thing's kind of worn off now, I think.
I still say anything you put out there that you're selling, I'm buying. So maybe there's still a little bit of that.
Well, tell us a little bit. We're going to get into all your photography and your background and your job and all that stuff. But I'm curious how you got started with motorcycles and how you got your first motorcycle, and tell us how that all started.
I feel like I've always been a natural on two wheels. Nobody taught me how to ride a bike. I just had a sloped driveway when I was 5 years old. I got on my bike one day and took off. And once that centrifugal force kept my balance up, I was hooked. And I stayed on it. And I guess the first motorized two-wheelers I had, my grandparents bought some mopeds, Honda mopeds. And this would have been late 70s, early 80s. And those, if you don't know what a moped is, that's where you can pedal like a bicycle, but it also has a motor and can run like a motorcycle. Well, I was sneaking those out every chance I could get, and I was well underage, and so incriminating myself here, but it was fun. Went out and had a lot more fun on those mopeds than they were ever designed to have. And not long after that, my dad bought a Honda 125 street bike, CB 125, I think it was back in the day. And once again, I was sneaking out on that as much as I could. And that was a kickstart bike. And if you've ever tried to start a bike with a kickstart on it, don't miss that kickstart when you're jumping down on it. It'll run up your leg and cause, I think I have a lifetime scar from that episode. But had a lot of fun on that bike, and eventually got my motorcycle license. When I got my regular license, I just added the motorcycle component to it. Took the test, and back then you had to have a riding and a written test, both. So aced both of those. And when I graduated high school, my dad asked me, what do you want for a graduation gift? And I said, well, I don't really want anything. I'm going to buy a motorcycle, and I need you to co-sign for me on the note because I didn't have enough credit yet, right? So he co-signed, and I got a 1984 Nighthawk 650.
Wow.
Yeah. And it felt like such a big bike, and you've seen them. By today's standards, it's a small bike, right. But it was 650.
Back then that was a big bike.
650 cc's, and I tell people all the time I'm lucky to be alive from that maybe 10-year time period of my life.
What year was that 650?
It was a 1984.
Okay.
So
giving away your age now.
Yeah, it was 1984. rode it for a long time. Had a lot of good times on that bike. My wife, who is out of the house, so she doesn't bother us today. We used to ride on it as late teens, early 20s. We'd go riding all over the Dallas area on that bike. Had a lot of fun on it. And then I sold the bike for a good while, probably a decade. Sold the bike and didn't have a bike. And that was around the time my daughter was born. And I had a close call on that 650, and it just scared me away from motorcycle riding. And then, because it's in my blood, eventually it came back. And of course, my daughter got older and was able to, the risk was less. And I said, well, I want a new bike. And about that time, I saw a commercial from Honda on their brand new VTX bike. And they were making two styles. They were making a 1300 and an 1800. Well, I wasn't about to go for the 1300. I needed an 1800, and found one up in Springfield, Missouri. There was a Honda dealership up there, and it was a year old. It's still sitting on the showroom floor, and man, they wanted to get rid of it because it had been there for a year or more. And they made me a great deal on it. So I got on a Greyhound bus, and I took a one-way ticket up to Springfield, Missouri. Probably the last time I ever get on a Greyhound bus. I'm sorry, Greyhound people.
I've done it.
But
not fun.
I think that driver fell asleep 2 or 3 times on the way up there, but I don't know. Anyway, got off with my life. That was great. Picked up the bike on the showroom floor, and over a course of 2 days, rode back down to Dallas. And I loved that VTX. I've kept that VTX for the better part of 20 years. Wow. And I dressed it up with everything, put a Batwing fairing on it, had it custom painted to match the bike. It was black and red, two-tone. And it was that retro style where they had the flared fenders and everything. Right. And it was powerful. I thought then, I'm never going to need another bike. I just love this thing. And that was my mindset for 20 years. And I had been watching the Goldwings, and they always seemed, first of all, like an old man bike, but here I am. I'm an old man. Secondly, they also seemed kind of big and bulky. I just didn't think I'm a short guy. I didn't think I could handle it all that well. So I'd kind of not really paid attention to them. I was just going to keep my VTX. And then one day I was in the showroom out here at the local Honda dealership, and they had one of the new style, I think it was a 2022 Honda Goldwing, and I walked by it thinking it was a sport touring bike. I, didn't think twice about it. And the name Goldwing caught my eye as I was passing by it, and I thought, that is not a Goldwing. They mislabeled that thing. Right. And sure enough, it was. And as you know, in 2018, they changed the body style, put it on a diet, slimmed it down. And just made it stunning. Nothing against the old versions for you guys. I mean, they had their thing, and God bless you if you ride those. But I fell in love with this Goldwing all of a sudden, enough to where I could trade in my beloved VTX. And I did. Got a pretty good amount for it, too, because I kept it pretty pristine. And some doctor bought it in Dallas. And
even on trade, you got 20 years?
Well, it was on consignment. Oh,
okay.
They wouldn't take it because it was so old, but they were willing to put it on their showroom floor and sell it for me. And they took their cut. And even with the cut they took, which wasn't all that big, pretty good amount of money on it. And so I ordered a 2023 in November of 2022. And I had to put $500 down just to secure the next shipment that came in, because they were flying. First of all, they couldn't get shipments. They were slow in coming in around that time period. And once they hit the showroom floor, they were gone. Like if they were going to get them in, this particular dealership was only going to get 2 or 3 in, right? And so I said, no, I want a red one. There was red and black. That were the 2 options. I said, I want a red one. Here's my $500. And December of 22, it came in, and I went and picked it up. And oh my gosh.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. I don't have to tell you how fantastic this bike is. And here I am saying once again, I'm not going to need another bike. This will be the last bike I ever own.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Depends on what Honda does.
So that's the history. Man, that was drawn out. Now you know not to ask me anything else.
What do you think the number one thing that attracted you about the Goldwing? What was what was the secret sauce that really got you excited about it? Was
Well,
it comfort or power or just styling? What?
I think I had the power in the VTX, to be honest with you, although it's not quite as smooth as this Goldwing. I didn't realize how not smooth the VTX was till I got on this Goldwing. But really what turned me on to it is, as you know, I have a house in Colorado, and one of my favorite things to do is an interstate trip. And I wanted something that could do that for me in comfort, because I'm getting older. It's not so easy to do these days.
Right.
And I said, man, I can't wait to try a Colorado trip on that Goldwing. And I was lucky enough that you joined me on our first excursion across state lines.
What a great trip.
Yep.
And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is and maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. But what was your most memorable experience on any motorcycle, not just the Goldwing, but just any bike in general?
Well, I've had some close calls, but that's really not. I don't want that to be the memorable thing. It's kind of a tie between the fun I used to have on that Nighthawk with my wife, and I was thinking about this today, and I thought, that trip to Colorado, Chris, that we did, I've really never taken a long trip with somebody else. I've done it several times by myself.
Right. But I haven't either. Yeah. It was my first time.
But to do it with somebody else just added so much to it. And to go a place that I know and I could bring you in and just, it was a very, very fun trip. So I'm going to say that probably tops the list.
Yeah, it was great. And, I think when you travel like that with other people or another person, it could really go bad. If it's the wrong person and you have completely different schedules and riding styles, it could be bad. But I think it turned out very good. I had a great time, so I was really enjoying it.
Well, thank you. It was an awesome trip, really.
It was. And I know that motorcycling is not your only passion. I know you have a real passion well, first of all, before I get into your other passion, tell me about your career, because you're a CPA or an accountant, or what is your job? What do you do 8 to 5?
That's right. I'm a CFO for a small company, a local company here in Frisco. When I was going through college, I started my college career in the criminal justice program, wanted to turn that into a law degree. I'm kind of glad that went south. Several things happened to change my mind about it at that time. But at one point I said, I think I was laid off from a bank. I was a teller and I was laid off at a bank, and I was about to get married. And I'm like, I need a job that every company needs. I need to have that security. Turns out it's not all that secure, but that was my thinking. I said, well, like marketing, most every company needs marketing. Finance, every company needs finance. Well, my granddad was the director of finance for the Dallas Post Office for a good number of years. And I thought, accounting, how hard can that be? Debit, credit, I soon learned how hard it could be, and got through college with a business degree in accounting. About a few years later, got my CPA. I've been a CPA now for 35 years. And it's been fun. So I've worked my way up through the accounting ranks, from somebody who's just entering invoices to now sort of in charge of, for the last decade or so, in charge of the accounting departments. And boy, it can be stressful, especially, when you're working for small companies, you're looking at every little thing, and it really, I need that motorcycle to take me away from that.
That's the thing. I think most people who don't ride don't understand that. And I guess I had to deal with this before I got back into riding. I think I probably I was a kind of a workaholic, and I kind of got my stress out just by continuing to work, 18 hours a day. Yeah. And then I took up golf, and I played golf for a while, but the motorcycle is a great escape. I mean, it really it
absolutely is.
If for no other reason, just because when you're especially in a town or a city like Dallas, when you're facing imminent death, you don't have time to think about the problems. You're so focused on surviving.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You mentioned that you work for banks, and you've got a couple interesting stories about you've faced some bank robbery situations.
When I was a teller, we boy, this is going back several decades. But matter of fact, I was in college while I was a bank teller. That's how far back it was. We had a small branch. Then the way this branch was nothing more than a mobile home set up on a freeway exit ramp and an entrance ramp. So that was very convenient for bank robbers. They could exit the freeway, grab my money, and get back on the freeway. And so it happened twice while I was there, and luckily nobody got hurt. But they came in with guns, and it makes you think about a few things when somebody's got a gun in your face. But luckily nobody got hurt, and I survived to go on to other jobs.
See, I think I'd have nightmares about something like that. I think if I was looking down the barrel of a gun, I think I would think about that regularly.
Well, and it wasn't like he was right here in front of me. One guy was at the door with a gun. The other guy was at another teller, and I'm just sitting there. Everybody's kind of stunned. So you're sitting there very still and very quiet, hoping nobody gets hurt. Once they get, and we were taught this, once they get what they want, they're going to be gone, which was the case.
Yeah. What, did they catch him?
The second time they did. So the same people came back to rob the bank a second time a few months later.
Why not?
In the same car. I mean, how stupid. So half of us recognized the car as it was pulling up in front of the bank. And so we had that magic button
pushed
immediately, before they even walked in the door. And so by the time they were leaving with all of their stuff, and again, thank goodness, nobody got hurt. By the time they were leaving, the police were pulling up from all different directions. And I think they actually had a chase down the freeway. So,
wow. Okay, so let's get into your other passion, because I know that you just got back from Iceland not too long ago, where you were on a photography tour.
Yeah.
And I know that you are quite a photographer. And
thank you.
Those of you that follow your channel, you also have a photography channel, which is Robert. What is it? How do I say it?
Robert White Photography. If you're actually looking it up, there's a dash in between.
And if any of you are into photography, I mean, check out his photography channel, because he's got some amazing pictures. Some of them taken on our road trip, and one of them right behind him. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about how you got into photography and how that became a passion. And I guess it's mostly landscape photography.
It is. It's I focus on. I tell people I focus on landscapes and wildlife, because neither one of those will yell at you if you take the wrong shot,
or sue you for.
I've done a few weddings, and nobody's ever happy with wedding photos. No. So, but yeah, I've been lucky enough, privileged enough to go to several iconic locations in the world. This boat is from Antarctica back in 2016. And then I got to go to the Faroe Islands back in 2023. And then Iceland here recently, a couple of months ago, December of 24. What started it all really was I had a film camera back in the film days. That's when I started. And I really didn't care anything about photography. I was just taking pictures and showing them to people. And I just started getting a lot of folks saying, wow, that's really good. Or I like the way you compose this, or whatever. And so I just kept it up and eventually moved to digital photography like everybody else did. I mean, I cannot believe now that I used to take my film, 36 shots, to a Kodak kiosk in a parking lot, wait 2 weeks for it to come back, to look at the 36 and throw 35 of them away. Yep. Whereas today I can take 2,000 like in Iceland and throw 200 away. And it's just such a different animal now. But everybody started commenting on how good my photos were. So I just said, wow, I kind of like this. Mostly, my wife is one of my strongest supporters. She loves my photography. Family loves my photography. And then I started a website first before YouTube. I started a website, and my website is real easy to find. So my website is www.robertwhite.photography. It's not .com. You have the option of picking .com or .something, and they were offering .photography, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Yeah. In hindsight, it confuses a lot of people. So
yeah.
anyway, you can see all of my best stuff there. But I created the website first and was sharing my pictures through the website. And I started watching a little bit of YouTube. It was getting popular at the time. And I thought I saw a few photographers, mostly over in England and the Netherlands. And I like, well, look what they're doing. They're having so much fun. They're going out and taking pictures. They're teaching people about photography. I could do that. I could start a photography channel. So I did. I started a YouTube photography channel first.
Oh, okay.
And went a year or two with that YouTube photography channel. And I, grew it to, it was less than 1,000 because I was never monetized on it. But it just wasn't as popular as some of those other guys because I'm a terrible teacher. But
I don't know about that.
Eventually, when I got I started watching you and everybody else because I'm going to get this motorcycle. I'm like, well, I'll just post some of my photography shoots by taking my motorcycle out to the location.
Right.
And oh my gosh, the popularity of my photo shoots when I was on the Goldwing was all of a sudden. And it didn't take, I'm slow, but it didn't take long for me to realize, hey, it's the Goldwing they're here for, not the photography.
Right.
So I started focusing on the Goldwing content. And for a long time, I just hoped to do both under the same channel. And you could clearly see a delineation in the views on the two types of videos that I would put out. And so finally I said, you know what? It's just too confusing for my followers. They don't know what they're going to get when they come to my channel. So last year, I split the channels in two. So I have a photography channel, even though I've been doing it the longest, and it is a major passion of mine. It has 191 subscribers. So it's still very, very small, and I can't seem to get it going. So you guys go out there and subscribe, please. Anyway, but I put all of my good stuff there. I put the videos on Antarctica. I put the videos on the Faroes and the videos on Iceland. You're not going to believe Iceland. Just some of those photos from Iceland or just give you goosebumps, giving me goosebumps right now. I'm just, anyway, but that's been my journey through photography, just from a lot of likes and people just noticing that I sort of did it fairly well. I don't have the pedigree that a professional photographer has. I didn't go to college for photography. I've just got...
That's probably why you're good at it.
I've got 3 or 4 decades of doing it, and I've learned so much through YouTube. I mean, all these guys that are great and do have these degrees are teaching on YouTube. So heck, I don't got to go to school. I just learn from them, and the results sort of speak for themselves. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm a rank amateur with photography. I'm more into the video than I was going to say. I mean, most of the photography I do now is with the iPhone, so you can't really well, compare.
And that's, a lot of people say that's killing photography. The fact that everybody's a photographer now.
Yeah.
Pretty soon people are just going to be taking their wedding photos with a bunch of iPhones,
and people's standards, I think, have become lower. They don't care so much about quality.
Well, it is, because think about where you're sharing all these pictures. It's all social media. It doesn't have to be the highest resolution and all that stuff. It's everything's on the phone these days. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Wow.
So I agree.
So how did you go from just riding a Goldwing? I mean, I know some of this probably had to do with the photography, but then now you're into motovlogging pretty seriously. So how did that get started?
I never wanted it to be about the money. I mean, there is a little bit, but I just wanted to share with people. And if you watch my videos, you'll notice that's how I'm a little different than a lot of motovloggers. If you comment on one of my videos, I guarantee you I'm going to respond to you, unless I delete you. But I'm going to respond to you.
That's a response.
It's my channel. Anyway, I try to bring a connection. And I think that's what we all need these days, is that connection. That's what's really binding us. That's what's attracting people to your channel, is the connection. These breakfasts that we have, and the people that are so excited about coming out and having breakfast with us. That's what they crave. And it grew so fast. The breakfast did. And
it did.
I was listening to a video just last night where a professional marketer, a digital marketer, was talking about the evolution of YouTube and how it doesn't have to be as polished and as shiny anymore. It has to connect. It has to build a relationship, and that's what's going to be the successful YouTube channels going forward.
Yeah, I think I look back now and I'm wondering should I've really spent all the money that I spent on a studio and all the gear, because I'm seeing some YouTube channels that are very, very, what we would have considered amateurish, but they're growing hugely. And it's more about like you said, it's more about the connection and the people and the relationship, I guess you could say.
Well, but I think you can do both. I think you built your studio and your following in a time where that was important, and now you have all the tools to just keep it going, and you don't have to worry about buying anything else. Now you can work on the relationships, and you're there.
Yeah, I need to start selling some things rather than buying some things.
Right.
So what is your what's on your bucket list? What's the ride? Let's say we got spring coming up here in a few months. Where would you like to go? What would be a road trip, let's say, that you would, doesn't have to just be one, could be more than one, but
I've got a few. I'm ashamed to say that I've been riding bikes all my life, and I've never been on the tail of the dragon.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, okay. No. So we're going to end the podcast right here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. This will never get past editing.
Yeah, right. No, that's probably number one on my list. And I would love to get out there and ride the tail of the dragon on this Goldwing, maybe with some friends. If I can find the time away from work to get that done.
Right.
I would love to do that. And then, we've talked before about the Twisted Sisters here in Texas. Wouldn't mind doing that. It looks like a lot of fun, and there's a lot of quaint little places to stay and eat in that route. So that would be fun.
A lot of good barbecue.
Oh yeah. And then lastly, I've got to go to Colorado again. I can't stay out of that state. I got to go back every year on the bike. I really do.
Yeah, we were just so lucky with the weather. The weather was perfect. And it was the perfect, when did we go? September 1st? Like right around Labor Day.
Yeah, it was, right. I remember extending my holiday for that trip. So yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. So yeah, anybody, if you've never been and done the $1 Million Highway, and tell us a little bit. You have a home up there. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know you're passionate about the Ouray and the $1 Million Highway. Tell us a little.
So when I was 16, my mother and stepdad moved from Dallas, Texas, up to Ouray, Colorado. They happened to just be passing through the town one day, and they were looking for someplace to go outside of Texas. And they happened to stop in Ouray, and in the window of some real estate company there on the main street of Ouray, there was a sign there saying there was a business for sale. And it was a sporting goods store right there in Ouray. And they said, oh my gosh, how much fun would that be? And they fell in love with the area. So long story short, they bought that house, they bought the store. And in my 20s, I used to go up there in the summer and work the store. It was pretty cool. There wasn't any skiing in this particular. Ouray is really not that close to a ski resort. What there was in Ouray was summer hiking and the summer four-wheeling and all of those summer sports. And so that's what they sold, tents and carabiners and all that sort of thing. And they ran that store for a good number of years. But in Ouray, you really got to make your money in the summer, because once Labor Day hits and all the kids go back to school, the tourism stops dead.
Yeah,
and so you got to make it, and the weather comes in, so you got to make enough in the summer to really carry you through the winter, and that's not always easy to do. So after about a decade of them struggling with that store, and doing okay, but struggling with the store, they sold the store, but they've kept their house. And I call it my house. It's really my mother's house, but I'm welcome anytime, and of course. And they spend so much time on a cruise ship because they're professional cruisers, that there's houses. It was empty when we were there. It's just almost empty year round. So it's free for the taking for me. So I like to take advantage of it every chance I get.
But that $1 Million Highway is just.
Is that incredible? And so people always, there's two reactions to that. There's, oh my God, I'm never going to drive that again. and there's what's everybody so scared about? They seem to be polarized on that. And a lot of the people that are afraid of it is it has no guardrails. And if you guys watch our videos from the trip, you'll see that it has no guardrails. Well, they can't have guardrails because there's rock slides.
Yeah.
And you can't shove a rock off the side of a road if there's a guardrail there, or snow. There's frequent snow slides there.
Right.
So they purposely don't put guardrails up because they'd always have to be maintaining them or have some way to take them down to get these giant, I mean, you've seen these photos, giant rocks. You don't want to stop on the $1 Million Highway, I'll tell you that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a beautiful, stunning drop-offs and just landscape and the mountains. It's a beautiful place. And tying this back into photography a little bit, if you have a chance to go there when the aspens change color in the fall, that's going to be the last weekend of September, first weekend of October. That range, very narrow window. Those leaves turn golden brown and they're all clapping in the wind. You can hear it. It's incredible. It's like an applause.
Wow.
And the landscape is just stunningly beautiful. Just wow.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I have really enjoyed it. I appreciate you taking some time to share with us your background and your history. And like I say, I've never done a podcast with another YouTuber or motovlogger, but I think it's a good idea. Your channel's growing, and I hope it grows more. If any of you out there have not yet done so, make sure you check out Robert White Moto and Robert White Dash Photography.
That's right.
Make sure you check out both those YouTube channels and subscribe. And Robert, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next Garage Talk.
Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure. You're one of the reasons my channel's grown, so thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Garage Talk is available on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, and of course, YouTube. You can help support the podcast by making sure you've subscribed to my YouTube channel. Just click that little subscribe button down below. Don't forget to click the notification bell. And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit that like button and give it a thumbs up. That really does help the channel.